Hello, I'm Catrina,
And I'm MJ.
and it's Two Cats Writing, and we are excited to have you here today. We have
Yes, we are.
really fun topic that I know is going to stir up a whole lot of conversations. We're discussing spice in the writing, which should be really interesting.
Spice in the writing. Every publishing social media's favorite topic.
Mm-hmm. For sure. We know book talkers are all about it.
I write YA, so why don't you start, Catrina?
I absolutely do not actually use anything people would define as spice, in my humble opinion. That being said, my very first book, my very first 2-star review told me to take the porn out of my book.
What was the so-called porn in this book?
It was a scene written in the book that showed a difference between the two main characters. The main male character was a bit loose.
I see.
The main female character was not, and was very much a shyer kind of a character. That's just how they walked onto the page for me, and it was important for the story that I made it clear that that was the case. And so in this scene, which can be read in the preview, so nobody has to actually buy the book, just the section that this person wanted to comment on. But, they apparently bought the book so they could tell me to take that one scene out, I guess. I don't know.
I see.
And then later, somebody else told me that I should have shown them doing things.
Mm-hmm.
I should have added some more spice, I guess, explicitly on the pages, which was not there.
Well, and that's our issue in a nutshell in some ways.
Huh?
Is the person who perceives content that isn't there, and then the person who wants more of that content, and you're gonna get comments from both. Mm-hmm. So just write what you're gonna write, you guys, within the appropriate parameters of the age demographic that your books are aimed for.
Yes. And it's very, very easy to stumble into a story that ends up not fitting your demographic if you aren't paying attention to that while you're writing. And it's also very easy to get in the wrong demographic because you're touching on stuff you shouldn't be touching. So make sure you're clear when you're writing where the spice should go. I know for me, my rule is whatever is on the page has to further the story. And that doesn't matter whether it's what people would perceive as violence, which, war in my first books, that was violent, or sexual spiciness, or any of the other extremes. If it doesn't further the story, it's probably not on my pages, which is the reason why I got both of those comments. I haven't gotten those since, although I also haven't released book 6 of the Protector series yet, so there's that. You guys will have to tell me that later. That one kind of gets a little bit of the flavor in there, but it furthers the story. So it's not just on the pages because I wanted to put it on the pages.
Well, and as a reader, I appreciate that too, because readers are always going to have their own preferences for what they're looking for in a book. But I have sometimes felt when reading something that a sex scene took me out of the story rather than made me feel like I was still in the story, seemed to hamper the story, kind of stop it in its tracks. And so for me, I want a scene like that to push the story forward. I want it to be important to my understanding of the characters and the scene, and like it's moving the plot forward. That said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with just like wanting to read like a very smutty book, you know. Like plenty of people just want to read that, and that like that's like a main thing that they want in their book. It's not a thing that I tend to look for, and it's absolutely, since again I write YA, not something I would ever write. But yeah, as a reader, I certainly would appreciate your approach, Catrina.
And I think it's important for authors to keep in mind you're going to write, and you should write whatever you are inspired or desiring to create. If you're somebody who wants to write a book that's full of spice and details, you want to be as explicit as you possibly can be, go for it. Just don't try to market it to the wrong demographics. Make sure that you are not labeling a YA book or an adult book as a YA book just because you chose to use an older teen or something in the story.
And like speaking about YA a little bit, since that is what I write, there are certainly differing opinions about what's appropriate for YA too, as well. And like certainly there's a difference between if you're writing younger YA or older YA. The thing that I appreciate, since our podcast is always like somehow like circling around our the differences between indie publishing and traditional publishing. Like in traditional publishing, maybe you're going to be querying your book wrong, but you're not going to accidentally publish your book wrong, because your publisher knows what the parameters are for them, and they're not going to try to market something that's inappropriate. But there's so many differing opinions. Like there are people who feel like generally speaking, I would say that sex scenes in YA are off page, right? Mm-hmm. They might happen because teenagers do these things. So like if you're writing teenagers in these scenarios, like that's a thing that happens. Like you can't pretend in 2026 that is not a thing. I don't think that there's a point in like shaming about that either. Like that's where we are today. There are people who don't think that there should be any of that at all in YA, regardless of whether it's on page or off page. Like they don't think it should be there. I think that, however, most publishers do not agree with that. Like I have in my debut novel, so I Was Teenage Death God, there's a scene that is between the main character and their love interest that is my original agent referred to it as the sexiest non-sex scene she'd ever read. Now I didn't set out to write it like that. It was more just a thing where like the main character of my book can't touch anybody without stealing their life away. Like can't touch their skin to someone else's skin. So for me, the scene was exploring like they have this relationship. They have this like best friend who they've had a crush on forever, and it turns out the best friend also feels the same way about them. But it's important to explore like how this issue that is not something that you can just dismiss, that they can't touch skin to skin, like how it impacts their relationship and how they would ever move forward with having any kind of romantic relationship that included a sexual element at all. So for me, it was an important scene to have to like kind of show my main character. It was more about my main character feeling not like a monster in a romantic relationship. And learning how they could have this without doing harm. So for me, it was a very important scene. Because they can't touch each other, there's probably more of it on the page than what you would see in some scenes in YA, but obviously not anything explicit whatsoever. And like there isn't anything explicit that they can do or what would be considered like typically explicit. So there is a scene like that in my debut. There are probably going to be people who object to it one way or another, partly because there are some people who perceive like all queer content as being deviant in some way or inappropriate in some way. But I don't care about those people. Those people are not, that's their problem. But there may be other people who don't like the scene. I hope that you will like the scene. I hope that people will understand that it's important. That said, I don't write a lot of that stuff in my books. I love. And my teenagers they do have these feelings and urges and things that they want to do in these books. They're because that's just who they are. If you're writing about if you're writing about like Ace or Arrow characters, like you might not have that, but that's not the characters I'm writing about. So they do want that, and so there's going to be, I feel like you can have passion and longing and all those feelings in your YA novel without having to, like, very easily, without having to have something that's inappropriate. And it's all about talking about the feelings and those feelings that are important to the plot. If the romance is important to your plot, or if these feelings coming from your character are important to the story. I think that it's very easy to write without crossing a line. And then there are definitely going to be people, certainly a controversial topic that I see all the time on social media, like author social media, is, people will get reader reviews, which authors don't read them. Just don't read them. Reader reviews who, adults, disappointed with the level of quote-unquote spice in your YA book and like giving it a lower rating because of that. That's a whole thing that happens. It's bizarre and ridiculous. But
so many series start off with YA entrance, and a lot of adults end up reading it, and that's when they have this other fantastical concept of where it should be, and the adults who are paying attention are probably not necessarily caring or probably not necessarily looking specifically for a YA book. And in that case, they shouldn't be grabbing your YA book and then expecting you to have like all sorts of
adult content in it. Yeah.
Now, does that mean that it might not happen on occasion? On occasion is one thing, but if you look at Book Talk, you'd think every book is that. And if that's what you enjoy, that is all good, but don't come at the author. My humble opinion, don't come at the author. We're writing what comes onto the page because that's what we were inspired to write.
Well, and authors, I'll say this, I just said it, but I'll say it again. Just don't read reader reviews, okay? Like, just don't do it. Like, it's not your problem. Don't worry about it. Like, people can complain. People can have their inappropriate complaints about your book. And it's a level of spiciness.
And speaking from experience, you're going to find yourself drawn to reading them. Just take her advice. Or Benji's advice. Don't do that. It's not worth it.
Because you can't control what other people say or think about your book. What you can control is whether or not you drive yourself out, like, around the bend.
Yes.
Over it.
If you have ever heard the phrase, your opinion of me isn't my business? Hold to that. As an author, their opinion of you isn't your business. So their opinion of your work is not your business. I've seen too many authors will end up. I see this. This is more indie. I think you probably have a good team that keeps you somewhat protected from doing this. Hopefully, but don't respond. Don't respond.
Oh yeah,
I don't
never
care what they put.
respond, even if you read them.
Do not respond. The review section is for the readers. It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Don't do it. It's tempting. Don't do it. Just don't do it. I have, to my knowledge, not ever responded to a review, but that only became the case because I had a lot of people who had been established. I am so grateful. Early on, I got in with some really good authors.
They gave you good advice.
Yes, as far as that goes. And I've always had the thought process of not responding to anything when I am in a particular emotional state. So if I read, for example, the one review that called the scene where the two characters were clearly indicating their differences in the gestures and behaviors, that scene, when I first read that and that was what they were referring to, I was absolutely furious and did not respond, because if I had responded, it would not have been professional or pretty. I am my mommy to thank for that. To not speak when I have nothing good to say. And I didn't have anything good to say. It would have been very ugly. So I didn't. But eventually, I did get to a point where I thought, okay, I'm calm enough. I could say something. Why am I going to say something?
Right, what are you going to accomplish with that?
Right. And then I read other authors who had responded, and I watched stuff blow up. Like, just, like they ended their career under that name before it really got started. And that will happen. Don't reviews, if you really must read them for whatever you feel like you must read them for, fine. It isn't a bad place to kind of get feedback and know where your readers want the story to go, but do not take them to heart. Do not respond to them. They are none of your business.
And traditionally published authors, or authors who are seeking to become traditionally published, all of that is the exact advice you should take. There are names that could be big enough that they could survive a kerfuffle of this magnitude. You can probably Google. I'm old enough to remember, Anne Rice in the Amazon comments, getting in deep there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, no one was going to stop publishing Anne Rice just because she was, unfortunately, arguing with people in her Amazon reviews. But most of us are never going to be a name of that magnitude. And I would also argue that it's a bigger deal to mess up like that since social media became what it is, which was not the case back when she was doing all of that as much. Your editor is going to send you trade reviews with pull quotes. Those are the only ones you should ever look at.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at the rest. Unless if you're certain that you can look at them and they won't absolutely destroy your confidence, absolutely destroy your soul, and you can read them all without needing to respond, without feeling the need to respond, then go ahead. But I would say tread carefully. I would recommend against it. Assign someone in your life to look at your Goodreads if that's what you need to do and send you like the really good ones that they think you'll want to hear and leave it at that. That would be my, and don't respond to those either. Like, don't go to your own
Never.
Goodreads.
Never. Unless you are doing a Goodreads event for some reason, there is no need for you to do that. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Self-sabotage is the thing we do. You don't have to. Don't do that.
And at this point, you know, we're talking about comments like well beyond like just the opinions people might have about the spiciness in your books.
Right.
As usual, we've strayed a little bit from our original topic, but
we would never.
But yeah, people are gonna have opinions about the level of spiciness, no matter what it is in your books. If you're writing fiction. Whether you have any in there or whether you don't, people are going to have opinions about it. So what you want to do is just write what you want to write. I think in traditional publishing, again, like you have the advantage of there being people to like keep the guardrails on and make sure that you are in your like staying within the standard acceptable parameters for your book. A lot of publishers will put age ratings on their books. Like for instance, I Was a Teenage Death God, my publisher rated for 14 and up. That's not to say that like, you know, a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old might not read it, or they might not be mature enough to read it, but that's like an issue between them and their parents and like whoever to decide whether that's going to happen. The publisher is saying, we think this is best for 14 and up because it's upper YA. And that can certainly give you like a sense that can give people a sense of what they want to buy. But your publisher will make sure that your work is properly labeled in however way they label it, that it matches what they look for in their imprint, what they typically are, you know, will publish. So you don't have to worry too much of it. If you go overboard, they're going to stop you. I don't know what happens if you go under and they expect more. I don't think that's really a thing in YA. I think they would just label it differently. But
trust your publisher. If they tell you too much, trust them.
Yeah. And with indie, like you don't have anyone doing that for you, so you kind of have to monitor yourself or have good people around you to help you like decide what you're going to do. I don't think a lot of like indie publishing is much more adult than YA overall. So I think most of the people who read those books are going to be looking for adult books. So you're not going to run into the exact same issues. But, Catrina's going to know more about how people perceive those books.
Yeah, not as often. You're not going to run into them, and certainly not as like some of the conversations you and I have had. The paths for indie, even those of us who do touch on YA books, we tend to market to the adults more than we will to the YA, because until I'd say the last 4 or 5 years, there really wasn't a path into the markets that are more direct to the YA group as a whole, and
which is like now, school libraries and places like that. Yeah,
right. And even now, there are paths now. You do have to know them. You have to know somebody who knows how to use them, and know somebody who knows how to market to that group and reach out to that group. Whereas through traditional, there's usually a more streamlined channel. Now, there are other things coming up that we're not going to discuss right now, but you can look forward to those.
We will eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. We have plans for those.
We have stuff to talk about, but we won't talk about it today.
Because if we start, we're going to totally go over time.
It'll be a whole other podcast. Yeah. This will be a podcast worth like 2 or 3 podcasts by then.
Probably, the way things are going.
Yeah.
But there are ways now that indies can get into those school libraries in theory, and get into your library. Market has been available to you from the beginning. You just have to learn how to reach out to them. And I am happy to discuss some of that at some point on the podcast as well. However, when you are considering the spice, there is one other thing that just crossed my mind that I think I
Mm.
don't know if you are familiar with this, but at one point our lovely romance authors led the charge in publishing in general, to be honest with you. They've led anytime romance takes a lean in one direction or another, everybody pays attention. And as indies, the romance authors decided to lead the charge into the basement. Now, what I mean by that, back in the early 2010s, like 2010, I'd say 2010 to 2015 ish, there was a lot of erotica being put out.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we're getting into the spice, we're talking the spiciest of spice put onto the page, and a lot that pushed boundaries that most people would step back and question. The thing is, there really is a market for these books. And when I tell authors that if you want to write something, there's a good chance you will have readers. You might have to hunt for those readers, but somebody will want to read it. And that is not an exaggeration. And this is kind of a demonstration of how that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, people were talking about like all sorts of things. I'm not going to give too many details right now, but all sorts of very, very obscure things. And that led to a lot of the marketplaces. None of this stuff would have ever been published traditionally. I will tell you that right now, because no traditional author would have touched a lot of this stuff. And I've read some spicy stuff from the traditional publishing. This would not have been touched. But with that in mind, when I say they led it straight to the basement, I mean there's only a handful of independent publishing platforms or sales platforms indies can get access to that will still feature this, and none of
Oh.
them will put it on the first page. You actually
Mm-hmm.
have to go looking for it now. It used to be that these would be bestsellers very, very quickly. Very quickly. You put out smut and smut was bought. And it didn't matter what kind of smut. And that actually created careers for a lot of our romance authors. And it
Mm-hmm.
gave them the income they needed. And when these changes to the industry started to change, they changed the way they wrote their spice and they changed the way they marketed their spice. So instead
So they
of
could stay
creating
on the front page.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something to keep in mind. If you are indie, especially, you have to pay attention to what the companies are doing. You have to pay attention. That's the only time that I would say that should have any influence on your spice. Because if you're inspired to write it, somebody is going to be inspired to read it. Just make sure if you're trying to earn a living, you need to stay relevant to the searches. And so you don't want your book to only be explicit if you're going to stay relevant, because now there is we're going to air quote basement of sorts. It can be found. You can still go onto Amazon and buy smut books. Even some of these boundary pushing stories, and effectively find good storytelling in some of them, not just smut. But you've got to be willing to, if you're going to write it, you've got to be willing to accept that it's not going to be the first thing that's searched in the story. It has to have a story to go with it. But that is the one aspect of spice for indies. I think you need to that I do think plays a factor, because I watched that roller coaster and I thought about getting on it for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't write like that. So I tried.
It didn't work
Kind
out.
of? No. No.
Yeah. No, I have
Mm.
I have those issues too. Like even like I've been working on like some stuff for the adult market.
Mhm.
Um like on the side, like adult sci-fi, because sci-fi is such a hard sell in YA these days. So I had started working on some things, and then, contractually that's something that my agent can work on selling, that doesn't affect my YA contracts at all. So like I started dipping my toes in there, and as I'm writing, I'm like, wow, I really have not put, like, there's no sex in this book. There's nothing like this, like it's just not going to be a book like that. And I'm talking to my agent. I'm like, okay, so it kind of reads like I guess I don't know whether there'll be a market for this. Like in the sci-fi market, are they going to want more than what I have in here? Because and I guess I'm going to find out. But it just wasn't that story for me. It just wasn't that story for me. Like it doesn't want those things. And we'll see how it goes. It's not to say that I couldn't write that necessarily, but like at least for this story, don't have anything like that in there.
Not every story needs it.
Yeah, this story just doesn't want it. I mean, partly it's a lot of the story is kind of a universe of two. It's like a main character and their best friend, like kind of on this long journey to try to get somewhere that I don't want to say because it'll give the whole story away. But it's just the two of them. They don't have feelings like that for each other. So they're pretty much like going through this whole journey with like their friendship is a big deal in this story, and their like the history of their friendship and the ways in which they're kind of family to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just there's no place where there would be anything like that because that's not a thing that they have between them. Their relationship is different than that. Yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes.
I'm looking forward to getting the chance to read it.
Yeah, I hope you do one day. We'll see.
All right.
Is it time to? Are we wrapping up here?
Well, I guess we got a few minutes.
Yeah, no, we can though, because I'm not sure we have much more to say. Just like, I guess we could say if we're wrapping up with like how do we personally approach these things? Like for me, it's all about the story and the feelings of the characters. My main characters tend to have very intense personalities and intense feelings, and I write everything from there. And so where that goes is where it leads. But I'm never writing in. Again, I write YA, but I'm never like putting in any quote unquote spicy scenes for their own sake. It's just not something that would happen in my books, specifically. It kind of sounds like you're in the same wavelength with that.
I am, and don't get me wrong, I like a little bit of spice on occasion, but no, I'm not gonna write it unless it fits the story. If something about the story, but that's me, and it's important. While we have a lot of more, we're gonna air quote freedoms in our writing and our choices of writing as far as spice goes as indies, you just write the story that comes to you. You write the amount of spice that fits your story. For me, it's not going to be something you're going to find in a lot of my books. If it happens, like I do have a scene in my Protectors where I am dealing with young adults. When I say young adults, I don't just mean teenagers. I mean like 20s. So that would qualify in the new adult market. Facing situations that we would not necessarily face exactly, but a variation, I guess. Things, trying to figure out how to say this without saying this.
Yeah.
And in that situation, I do have a character that's going to encounter something that is going to be quite in that vein of chaos. There's a lot, but in this situation, the spicy aspects of it are a lot more than just spicy aspects. So this is a character that's going to be facing their own personal decisions and some significant repercussions that will come regardless, depending on which decisions they make. And it's a process. It's not just like, so that's what you're going to find in my books. You're not going to find stories of just the spice. And if at the same time, I'm all for, if that's what you want to write it.
I'm going to even go so far as to say, hey, authors, if you want to make the kind of money you might make by adding some extra spice into your book, there is no shame to that.
100%.
Go get that bag. Get that bag, author.
Uh-huh.
Go and write that. If you're writing for adults, like, and you're like, you know what? I know that if I added 2 more scenes like this, I probably am gonna make, this much more money from it. And you're doing it for that reason. Like, I'm not gonna be such a snob here. Such a craft snob. I write YA. I can't be a craft snob, or I'm not going to be a craft snob. To say, like, don't write the thing that's going to make you money. You go ahead and write that thing that's going to make you money. Go for it. Like, whatever Catrina and I do, that's not, you don't have to be us.
Right. 100%. And if you don't like spice, one of my pen names only writes clean, by definition clean. Industry
quote unquote clean
romance, which means you got no foul language, you've got nothing on screen. As a matter of fact, you don't even have implied out of social expectations structured implications of things. Very air quote clean. The only thing that I get some pushback from with that pen name is the fact that every one of them are interracial.
Oh geez. Well, people who are complaining about that don't need
That's
to
not my
read
problem.
your books. Yeah. They can go find some
there are plenty
other
of other
books
to read. Yeah, any times I've gotten those reviews, I'm just like, that's not my problem.
Yep,
that's your
nope.
problem.
Yep, that is.
But so the point is, like, there's a wide range of spice, from those who are completely perfectly on par, quote unquote clean romance, to those who are literotica.
Yep.
Write it. Do what moves you. Take the spice and add it where you see it fit, whether it's explicit, an on-screen, or page, or off-page and implied. Do what works for you. And have fun.
And then just figure out how to market that. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's a way. And if you're not sure if there's a way, ask your questions in the comments. If I can help, I will help you. And if I can't, there are, depending on what kind of writing you do, there are going to be places that you can submit to. So, like, you'll have a lot more options than you probably realize. So.
YA authors, be careful. Okay.
keep it in present in mind while you're writing, that you're writing for the audience.
Yes. And thanks so much for joining us today.
We are so excited about the next episode. We'll tell you about it when we get there.
See you next time on Two Cats Writing. Bye.
Bye.